15. Smartest lottery winners who said no to family and stayed rich. Real jackpot stories. The moment people find out you've won, the requests start. Family first. Always family first. These 15 winners did the one thing almost nobody has the nerve to do. They said no and stayed rich because of it. Every single story on this list started the exact same way every other winner's story starts. Excitement, disbelief, and a phone that wouldn't stop ringing. What happened next is where these 15 separated themselves from almost everyone else. Here are their stories. Number 15. A young lottery winner who scratched off a card at a family white elephant party and found himself holding $25,000. Instead of splitting it evenly among 30 relatives, he gave everyone at the party $250 as a gesture of goodwill, then kept the rest. Family members who weren't even at the party demanded a cut too. He held the line, put most of the money straight into savings, and let the disagreement play out without ever changing his answer. What stands out about this case is how early the pressure started. Not weeks later, but within the same evening the win happened, which meant he had to hold his position with almost no time to prepare an argument in advance. Number 14. A smaller lottery winner who took home around $20,000 after taxes, only to be cornered by his own parents and siblings at Thanksgiving dinner, demanding $10,000 for a family vacation. He calculated exactly what the money could and couldn't reasonably stretch to cover, refused to be guilt-tripped into handing over half his prize for a trip he never agreed to fund, and walked away from the table, having given nothing beyond what he'd already decided in advance. The pressure didn't stop at one conversation either. It followed him from a private request days earlier into a full group confrontation at the dinner table, and his answer never moved between the two. Number 13. A woman whose brother was struggling financially and expected a large share of her winnings. Instead of an outright no, she offered something smarter, help building an actual budget, plus a modest $5,000 for immediate needs, rather than an open-ended handout. Her brother accused her of not caring about family. Her parents split on the issue entirely. She held her position anyway, choosing a structured, limited form of help over an unlimited one that could have drained her winnings within a year. She later said the hardest part wasn't the number itself, but sitting with the accusation that she didn't care, and choosing not to let that guilt override a decision she still believed was right. Number 12. A winner who described getting 10 phone calls a day within weeks of the news getting out. Friends, family, co-workers, even a co-worker's sister asking for help with rent. One friend asked for $20,000 for an engagement ring for a relationship that, as it turned out, wasn't even exclusive. The winner eventually stopped answering unknown numbers entirely, screening every call and text through a single filter. Was this someone they'd have helped anyway, before the money existed? That filter turned out to be the real innovation here. Not a blanket refusal, but a consistent test applied evenly to everyone, regardless of how close the relationship had once been. Number 11. A winner who gave $4 million to her mother and sister early on, thinking generosity up front would settle things. It didn't. Within months, they were pushing for a family beach house on top of what they'd already received, and calling her selfish for hesitating. She and her partner had already put half their winnings into real estate before the pressure escalated, which meant the bulk of the money was structurally out of reach by the time the bigger requests started arriving. A boundary built into the plan itself, rather than one she had to keep re-explaining out loud. Her family, notably, wasn't in financial hardship to begin with, which made the escalating demands feel less like need and more like an assumption that the money existed simply to be redistributed on request. Number 10. An anonymous Reddit poster who kept a $22 million jackpot secret from almost his entire family, telling only his wife and a single sibling. He specifically avoided telling his teenage daughters, worried they'd spend years simply waiting to inherit rather than building their own lives. He'd researched other winners beforehand and learned that roughly 1 in 10 lottery winners eventually lose their winnings entirely or go bankrupt, largely because of exactly the kind of financial pressure that floods in once people know. Silence, for him, wasn't secrecy for its own sake. It was a deliberate financial strategy, treated with the same seriousness he'd already shown by paying off his mortgage and managing money carefully long before the jackpot ever hit his account. Number 9. Billionaire entrepreneur Mark Cuban, who has repeatedly advised sudden winners on exactly this problem, has stated plainly that the correct answer to nearly every request from friends and family after a windfall is simply no. It's blunt advice, but multiple financial planners who work directly with lottery winners echo the same core idea, that hesitation and half measures cause far more long-term damage than a clear early boundary ever does. The advice resonates specifically because it comes from someone who built and protected significant wealth long before any of it was a lottery matter, suggesting the same discipline applies whether the money arrived through decades of business decisions or a single lucky ticket. Number 8. Winners who adopt a single prepared response for every money request, regardless of who's asking. Something as simple as directing every ask through a lawyer or financial advisor instead of answering personally. This removes the emotional weight of the conversation entirely. It's no longer a winner rejecting their own brother or their own mother. It's a policy applied evenly that nobody in the family can take personally, at least not for long. Advisors who recommend this approach point out that it also protects the winner from a subtler risk, the exhaustion of relitigating the same decision in a dozen slightly different emotional conversations. Each one designed, whether consciously or not, to find the one version of the ask that finally breaks through. Number 7. Winners who chose to help selectively and specifically, rather than broadly, paying off one relative's medical debt directly to the hospital, for example, instead of handing over cash that could be spent anywhere. This lets a winner be genuinely generous with people they choose to help, while making it structurally impossible for that generosity to spiral into an open-ended expectation from everyone else watching. A direct payment to a specific bill also leaves far less room for the money to quietly become something else entirely once it's out of the winner's hands. Number 6. Winners who set a hard, fixed number early and never move it, regardless of how the request is framed. Financial advisors who work with sudden wealth describe this as one of the single most effective tools available, because the moment a number becomes negotiable even once, every future request becomes a negotiation instead of a decision that's already been made. Consistency, more than the size of the number itself, is usually what determines whether the boundary holds for years or collapses after the first particularly emotional appeal. Number 5. A winner whose family found out about a windfall only after a sibling leaked photos online against her explicit wishes, triggering a wave of judgment from relatives who weren't even present for the original conversation. She kept her original answer in place regardless of the wider audience now weighing in, refusing to let public pressure from people outside the original conversation change a decision she'd already made privately. The leak itself became almost irrelevant to the outcome. Once she'd decided what she was and wasn't willing to give, an audience of 30 relatives instead of 5 didn't change the math at all. Number 4. A Texas family whose $80 million jackpot became a cautionary tale precisely because clear boundaries were never established early. Reports on the fallout describe years of legal disputes, exploitation, and a daughter who eventually cut contact with her own parents entirely over how the money was handled. Financial counselors who reviewed cases like this one consistently point to the same lesson. The families who suffer the most aren't usually the ones who said no too often. They're the ones who never said it clearly enough, early enough to begin with. What began as a life-changing win ended, years later, as a case study advisors now use specifically to illustrate what happens when generosity has no structure behind it at all. Number 3. Winners who loop in a financial advisor or attorney before a single conversation with family happens at all, arriving at every difficult discussion already knowing exactly what they can offer, what they won't, and why, rather than improvising an answer in real time while a parent or sibling is standing in front of them applying pressure. Advisors who specialize in this exact scenario often role-play the hardest conversations in advance with their clients, treating the family discussion itself as something to prepare for, with the same seriousness as a major business negotiation. Number 2. Winners who treat every yes as a precedent rather than a one-time favor, understanding that a single unplanned gift to one relative rarely stays private. and almost always becomes the baseline expectation for the next person who asks. The smartest winners on this list didn't necessarily say no to everyone. They said yes exactly as many times as their original plan allowed, and not once more. That distinction, a plan followed consistently rather than a blanket refusal, is what separated winners who stayed close with their families from winners who simply avoided them entirely. And number 1, the winners who decided their boundaries before the jackpot ever hit their bank account, not after the first uncomfortable phone call. Every winner on this list who successfully protected their winnings had one thing in common. The hardest conversations were never a surprise to them because they'd already had the conversation with themselves first, long before anyone else got the chance to ask. By the time a relative finally worked up the nerve to ask for money, these winners weren't deciding anything in that moment at all. They were simply repeating an answer they'd already settled on weeks, sometimes months, earlier. That's the pattern across every story here. Saying no to family was never really about the money itself. It was about deciding, calmly and in advance, exactly what generosity would look like on their own terms, instead of letting panic, guilt, or the sheer speed of everyone else's expectations make that decision for them. The jackpot changed their bank balance. The boundary is what kept it there. None of these winners set out to become the villain of their own family story, and most of them, by their own accounts, never wanted to be. What they wanted was simpler, to make sure a single stroke of luck didn't end up costing them the very relationships the money was supposed to make easy.